My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. All right. Now, we are continuing our study of the resurrection. We are doing that by comparing Romans 8 with 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Romans 8 is talking about deliverance from the mortal body. 1 Corinthians 15, deliverance from the mortal body. Romans chapter 8 is one of those texts that 99.9% of the commentators say here is Paul's somewhat brief, but nonetheless his magnum opus in regard to the ultimate goal of eschatology. And when Paul says that the entire creation earnestly groans for the manifestation of the sons of God, eagerly expects the manifestation of the sons of God, we are told that what that means is that one of these days, at the end of the current Christian age, at the end of time, Jesus will come out of heaven and the earth will be completely renovated in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. We will have a literal, physical new heaven and new earth. After all, creation is supposedly groaning, longing for that recreation. So we're told that the creation of Romans chapter 8 is the physical creation. Now, I've already done a really brief study of the Greek word katisis. Well, there are certainly some places in the New Testament in which katisis refers to natural creation. When the Bible talks about regeneration, when the Bible talks of salvation, when the Bible talks about the new birth, which is the new creation, it is never talking about physical creation unless that's what Paul's talking about in Romans chapter 8. But there's more evidence in this chapter, in this text, that lends itself to understanding that Paul is absolutely not talking about physical creation. Some of you got a big bang out of my reference to bugs, slugs, and mosquitoes. Well, look, not trying to be overly facetious, but if Paul's talking about creation being delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the sons of God, then we have no choice but to believe that one of these days, bugs, slugs, and mosquitoes must be called our brothers and sisters. They must be Christians. If you're going to make creation, physical creation, you have no choice in that. But again, Paul speaks of the creation being subjected to futility. Now, we are told, and appeal is made to the idea that in Genesis, Adam would labor in the field, and there would be thorns and brambles. That's the creation that was subjected to vanity. The earth, physical creation. Well, let me say this. If the futility of Romans chapter 8, verse 20, is the earth suddenly producing thorns and thistles, difficult to believe there weren't thorns and thistles already, then if that's the futility that Paul's talking about, then it is the first and the only time in all of Scripture where the word futility, or its cognates, does in fact refer to physical creation. I'm almost out of time of what I was going to share with you this morning, but let me just say this as a preliminary for tomorrow. In any study of the resurrection, we must understand the concept of futility. Because you see, in Paul's thought, in Paul's theological thought, futility is the same as corruption. We are told it's the physical body that is subject to the corruption. Now, Paul will talk about corruption, and we'll look again at that word. But again, for Paul, futility is corruption. Futility, in Paul's thought, is very well defined. And let me say this. In Paul's theology, and indeed in biblical theology, the word futility is never, ever used to speak, to describe physical futility. And by that I mean to say, the word that is translated as futility, which is the Greek word metaiotes, that word is never used to say, boy, you know what? I'm only 5'8", and I weigh, it ain't none of your business what I weigh, but but I wish that I was 6'4". I wish that I was tall, dark, and handsome. That word is never, ever used to speak of, well, bugs, slugs, and mosquitoes longing for the day in which a slug wasn't slimy, in which mosquitoes don't bite, in which trees long to be taller, greener, bigger. Do you get the point? Do you catch the power of that? The word futility never, ever refers, unless I've missed it. There may be a place or two, but I don't think there is. I've looked at the word metaiotes in both the Septuagint and in the Greek New Testament. I have not found a single place in which the Greek word metaiotes, and especially in a context having anything to do with eschatology, has the slightest reference to physical creation, rocks, trees, bugs, slugs, and mosquitoes, longing to be better. I have not found a single text, a single eschatological text, that can clearly be identified as human beings describing their physical bodies in any way as vain and futile. You know, that would almost be a Gnostic concept. But we're going to explore Paul's theological use of futility. Creation was subjected to futility. What does that mean? We'll explore that on the flip side.